Guys, hope your Memorial Day weekend was nice and long and peaceful, restful, and all that kind of stuff. You had picnics or whatever. Hope you had a great time. My weekend pretty much came and went. Didn't accomplish much of anything. And your T-shirt, the first two are correct. The bottom one's not. It says avoids people. I like people. I enjoy interacting with them and enjoy conversing with just about anybody. Anyway, I'm going to talk to you about my first experience with keto, and it was before I ever heard the term keto. I was always a fat kid. By today's standards, I was pretty small, but that's sad. You look at the world today, back when I was a kid, there might be a real heavy person, 1 out of 100, if that many, and nowadays it's almost 1 to 1, and it's really sad knowing that it's the evil American diet that has done this to everybody. And the greedy corporations, the medical complex, the government, it's all just part of the world controlled by Satan the devil. And it's not going to get any better in our lifetime, sadly. But God will take care of it one of these days. He'll fix everything. I don't know what your belief system is. I'm not going to try to preach to you about mine or anything, but I do believe the Bible, and I wish everybody did, but that's not for me to make happen. But anyway, back in when I was 16, I started having low blood sugar problems, and I'd get the sugar shakes pretty bad, and I discovered it was from drinking soda pops. Well, I went from drinking sugared ones to the only diet drink available at the time, which was Tab, and then a few years later they started making Diet Coke and Diet Pepsi and stuff, and I changed to Diet Pepsi, and so I'd been drinking those for years, and they helped, but they didn't fix the problem, and I didn't understand it, and I got heavier and heavier and heavier, and by 2002, 82, 83, nope, let's see, 82, 83, yeah, around there, I was about 270 or 80 pounds, somewhere like that, maybe 90, and was just having tremendous up and down blood sugar problems, and blacked out a time or two from them. One time on top of a printing press on the fourth floor, because I went into one of the blood sugar things and I couldn't get the ladder to get down to the next floor, or the steps. I forget if it was ladders or steps, but anyway, I passed out up there, and they found me an hour or two later as I was about to come to. Well, I went to a doctor, and the doctor was an old Army doctor, and I told him my problems and told him I was tired of being fat and laughed at and made fun of and all this stuff, and I was really tired of the roller coaster blood sugar rides that I was on. And he talked to me and explained to me what was going on. And he said, your body makes too much insulin in response to the amount of sugar you eat or carbohydrates. And he said, I've got a diet. If you will follow it, it will fix both of them. And he said, I'll be right back. He left the room, and he come back, just had a single page. And on one side it said, this is what you should eat. And on the other side it said, this is what you should avoid. And he said, if you'll follow this diet, it will fix your problems. And I did. And I had no idea I was following a keto diet. I'd never heard the term. I'd never heard of Dr. Atkins. If I had, I didn't know anything about him or his diet that he put forward or anything. But I started following that diet, and that old Army doctor told me that this was the diet back when he was a doctor, when they'd get some Army guy in that just couldn't lose weight no matter what he did. They'd put him on that diet, and it would work if they followed it, and if they didn't, they usually were headed out the door pretty quick because it was a last resort diet to get them back into shape. So I followed it, and in no time at all, I was not having blood sugar problems, and lost weight. And man, it melted off of me. Of course, back when you're that young, it don't take nothing for it to melt off of you if you follow a keto type diet. And it was not as strict as I followed once I got back into keto back in 2019. And there were a lot of things allowed on it back in those days that come up under following Dr. Westman weren't allowed on it, or were heavily recommended against. But anyway, I lost down to 173 pounds. And I thought I looked good. And originally I felt good. The only thing was I could see all my ribs. I could see, my joints, and everything. And the longer I stayed at 173 pounds, the worse I felt. And after 4 or 5 months of being at 173 pounds, I went to see the doctor again. He was proud of me for losing weight. Then I told him about my problems, how I was beginning to feel just weak and tired and run down. And he checked me over, checked my blood pressure and this, that, and the other. And he said, well, son, regardless of what those weight charts say, some people just aren't meant to be that small. And he said, you're one of them. And his recommendation was to gain 10 pounds back at a time. And when I got to 10 pounds, to stop and try to maintain that weight for a while and see how I felt. And if I didn't feel a whole lot better, to do it again until I got to a level where I felt good at. Well, the level I felt good at was between 210 and 220. And I felt real good. And I managed to stay there until several years later, the ex-wife, she finally got to me, and I got to where I was eating the stuff that I used to eat when I got upset and depressed and everything. And so I turned to food again, started eating, threw that diet out the window, and just went back to eating the way everybody else ate. And then after she was gone, I started going back to that diet, and it worked. I lost a lot of weight pretty quick and got to feeling good again. And then after Ruthie and I got married, there was never a problem between us, but some of her kids, they thought I was going to be a bad guy just because her ex-husband, their stepdad, was a bad guy. And just the trauma and the burden they dumped on us just made life really hard. And I went back to eating the old way, only worse than I'd ever done before, and that's why I gained up to 370 pounds. Over the last, the first 2 years I stayed pretty stable, but the last 18 years I just ate and ate and ate until 2019. And that's when I went to the doctor, and I'll tell that story in my next story. Love you guys, especially the ones that support me and the ones that appreciate my supporting them. And I hope you like my little channel. I'm not trying to make money. I just want to encourage people, and I enjoy the encouragement I get back from you guys. Well, you have a good night, and I hope your tomorrow at work isn't too bad. God knows I wish I could still work every day. I'd much rather do that than hang out at McDonald's or stare at the walls. If I was independently wealthy, I'd be traveling, but I'm not. So my constraints are pretty tight. Anyway, I'll talk to you. I'll try to do another story tomorrow talking about where I picked up with keto starting in 2019 and how I got started on it. Okay, you guys have a good night, and thanks for listening to me.